which is not nearly enough, really.
Thank you.
So, Reverend Loren Mead not only is the person sort of responsible for the wonderful art exhibit that's up right now, but I want to make sure you all understand just how significant Loren is to me and to us and to basically every minister that I know. You cannot find a minister who does not have at least one of Loren's books on their shelves, well thumbed, well marked, with lots of underlines.
Interrupt you to say I've told them all they don't have to read the books, they just got to buy them.
And we do read them and we do use them because, among other things, Loren is the founder of the Alban Institute, which is where ministers and lay leaders go to figure out how to do church well. So when I run into challenges, problems, when I go astray in my ministry and need help figuring it out, I turn to Loren's books, I turn to his colleagues at Alban and that fine, rich tradition. And so I want to say that when I mess up, I go over here and try to get back on track. When I do something well, more often than not, you can thank Loren Mead for setting me straight. So thank you very much for being here, Loren.
Good.
So lucky to have you.
I need to place myself for you. How many in here live at Goodwin House, Bailey's Crossroads? Put your hands up high. This is a bunch of people I live with. We're neighbors down here, and in spite of all appearances, you know, I have this clerical collar on, and I'm aware that some Unitarians are allergic to these things. That's all right. I'm a human being, and I'm with some of your people. Thank you for what you mean to us at Goodwin House. I am here specifically this morning because I've been involved in developing an art exhibit that's in your gallery. Praise you for having put up such a gallery for people like us. You may not realize how important you are to the people who are not here. But in this community, this congregation means something and provides something to us. Other than the meetings you have and the training programs and all of that kind of stuff, your being here is important to us. We just heard a story about how Coyote, remember, forgot how to dance and to sing. Well, this is a community of people that tries to remember what it is to dance and to sing. And it's important for us to be that in the midst of this community. So I want to thank you for doing that and being steady in that work. But I really want to tell you about somebody else whose name is John Waddill. Episcopalians, when they finished seminary, and I did down here in Alexandria in 1955, that was a difficult time in the South for those of us who were going into parish ministries, most of us into white churches from that seminary. And because that was right after the Supreme Court decision that told us separated schools were wrong and that we needed to find how to be together in our schools. And a lot of people living there that I knew were having trouble with that. Didn't know how to do it, and they struggled with it, and I'm not sure, on the whole, that we did very well. We still got a lot of work to do. Because you see, that part of the world, we don't realize it, but they suffered through 200 years of a Holocaust, which we called slavery. And we've had another 100 years since then when we've been play acting at trying to make it different. Well, that's the world I had to go into as a young minister, and we were scared. In the Episcopal Church, the bishop sends you to your first appointment, and I was anxious about where I should go. I got the message, and I was walking across the campus at the seminary, and a professor said, "Where are you going, Mead?" I said, "Well, Zab, I'm going to Pinopolis, South Carolina." And Zab said to me, "Oh, I know that place. That's Hellhole Swamp." We have a resident of Hellhole Swamp over here who's the daughter of the artist. It was Hellhole Swamp, technically on the maps, but it was a wonderful place in many ways, partly because of this young woman who was a child who played with my children. I haven't seen her for 50 years. And John Waddill, who was a painter who lived there. Well, let me tell you about his painting. That's a tough world down there. It was poor. Everybody was poor. But John went there because he had a vocation to paint beauty. I don't know any other way to put it. He had a vocation. He was called by God inside himself to paint, and he did. He never got very much recognition around the world for it. Some of his colleagues did. You all know the name probably of Jasper Johns, who was a classmate of his. But a great man. John was a part of that group, but he chose to go back to South Carolina, to his homeland, partly because he loved the land down there. And what he wanted to paint was the ordinary stuff of life, which was down there. Flowers, trees, houses, barns. And he went, and for 60 years, he did an extraordinary job of painting. A few years ago, I got upset because the world never paid any attention to John Waddill. And I started organizing, and I got some people, mainly Carson Harrington over here, whom I'd known before. And we decided we ought to have his art available for people to look at, to get some sense of the beauty that John found in a world that had a lot of ugliness in it. And so that's what the art show is for. It's about a man who found beauty in a difficult place and spent a whole life pretty much unknown. And I decided, and some friends decided, this man deserves a shot. He deserves a chance to be seen. And so thanks to you all and your willingness to allow strangers to come in and show the pretty things, the great things that God has done, we're doing that. And this afternoon, I want to thank you very much for being the kind of place that's open to the kind of beauty that I think we're going to share with you. Thank you so very much.
Please join me now in a time of meditation, reflection, or prayer. Spirit of life, God of many names, we come today in gratitude. We come today under the great bowl of the sky. We come with our feet on the same earth that Coyote runs and dances across. We come with our glasses half empty and our glasses half full. We come with songs in our hearts. We come with tears in our eyes and everything in between. We come whole. We come whole. And let us lift up our hearts. Spirit, help us open ourselves. In the name of those whose voices are suppressed, in the name of those people struggling under addiction and illness, shame and fear, we lift up our hearts for all those who need courage, that they may find it. We lift up our hearts for all those who need a friend, so that they may find one. We lift up our hearts so that all those silent and unspoken dreams that people are afraid of even dreaming can take flight and become real. In the silence that follows now, I invite you to speak or whisper the name of people who need their names whispered so that they can enter this space and be with us and be touched by us. All these names, spoken and unspoken, join us here from the sanctuary of our hearts into this sanctuary of our church. They are most welcome. They are most welcome. Amen.
Now we have a special opportunity to put our faith into action, to help others by giving of ourselves. As a community, we at UUCA practice Give the Plate, and today we invite you to support our partnership with NISQA, the network in solidarity with the people of Guatemala. Since 2007, our church has collaborated with NISCA to sponsor 15 human rights advocates called accompaniers. Our 16th accompanier actually will leave in a couple of weeks to join an international team that lives among the Guatemalans, monitors tense situations, and provides a presence that deters the violence and intimidation that targets human rights activists in that region. Official acts of genocide in Guatemala ended 30 years ago, but individual activists are still targeted for their work on human rights there. And accompaniers protect these activists by becoming a presence there. These activists often act as witnesses and legal teams in court cases, such as the 2013 trial in which Guatemalan former military dictator was convicted of crimes of genocide and crimes against humanity. Recent UUCA delegations with NISCA representatives have visited Guatemala to learn more about this important work. And next week, an accompanier will actually be joining us here in the sanctuary to tell us more firsthand about it. This month, our Give the Plate donations go to cover the stipends for accompaniers. Please visit the Partners for Arlington and Guatemala table in the Fellowship Hall following the service to learn more about this important Faith in Action ministry. Thank you. If you are writing a check, please make it payable either to UUCA and mark it either Give the Plate or Pledge. Otherwise, please place your most welcome offering into the basket. Your generous gifts will now be gratefully received. Ushers, please come forward.
I invite you to join me now in our unison affirmation of gratitude and giving. The words are printed in your order of service. Ushers, will you please come forward? You guys totally match. Look at this. Did you coordinate this morning?
Yes, of course.
Always.
Always.
Good. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so we may learn from the generosity of others. And so we commit this offering, and so we commit ourselves. Amen. Gay. May I have this piece of paper? Thank you. I'm going to tell you a story to start off. I'm going to tell you a story of where this paper comes from. This paper in my hand. This comes from the far side of the world, this piece of paper. From the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan. It comes from the Daphne tree, which grows among the shadows of mountains and beside white crashing rivers. The bark of the Daphne tree is peeled off, but carefully, never taking so much that it hurts, and then taken back to the village where those strips are split and split into smaller and smaller strips, and then set in a big pot of water to boil over a dry log fire until eventually they go soft like broad brown noodles, and a bright yellow foam gushes up as if from nowhere. The bark noodles are set to cool and then shoveled into an ancient and cantankerous pulping trough that slowly turns those softening tree noodles into an applesauce-like pulp, which is then ladled across a screen in a cold water bath until the Daphne sediment sinks, finding its place against the screen, which is then carefully propped up so that wind and sun and stars can dry it out until, voila, paper, which has now found its way here to Arlington, Virginia. And this paper that I hold in my hands that came from the other side of the world to Arlington, Virginia, found its way into our worship team meeting recently. And I tell the same story to them that I tell to you, which is where this paper comes from. This great chain of miracles that makes this possible. And I issue an invitation. I say to them, I want you to write a poem on this paper. I want you to write a poem. I want you to hear the scrape of pen on fiber. I want you to feel the paper rough under your hand. I want you even to feel the way your muscles cramp in your hand from longhand writing in a keystroke age. So what do you suppose I heard in response to this invitation? No, I'm not a poet. I can't possibly. The paper is so beautiful. I don't want to spoil it. What if I ruin it? I'm not good enough. Nothing I can possibly say is worthy of this paper. And I understand, believe me, I understand all too well. This paper is perfect. It is perfect in its simple beauty. And you know what? Every single one of us, we're told every day of our lives in one way or another that as perfect as this paper might be, we are lacking. We are lacking. This paper's creation story is magical, and we're just ordinary people, maybe sitting around planning worship services. We're just people doing our best, nothing to see here. Except that we are produced by the same miraculous alchemy as this paper. We are stripped and boiled. We are pulped and distilled. We are combined and recombined by our days upon this earth into an almost unbearable, incomprehensible, never to be seen again uniqueness, so precious that it sometimes threatens to burn out my eyes when I see it in you. Dried under sun and wind and stars until we show up here one day, as if washed in by the tide. And this paper, this extraordinary paper, it cannot find fulfillment until someone writes on it. Until then, it waits. The paper waits for us. It waits for us to be brave enough to make our mark. Then, and only then, when the journey of the paper meets the journey of our lives, in that surging moment when pen finally meets paper, only then is the paper fulfilled. And we find a measure of fulfillment too, in this perfect moment of mutual blessing. This paper exists to be impressed upon, and we exist to make our impression. We human beings, we are here. We are here to experience and to witness to the world, to remember and to tell what we see. Now, Loren's artist friend, John Waddill, he was kind of like this piece of paper in a lot of ways. He was rich with self, with memory, with beauty, but it's kind of like instead of being written on and shared this way, the way Gay just shared with you, it's instead as if this piece of paper that is John Waddill was sort of tucked away, out of sight, never to be read, never to be spoken, never to be shared outside of a very small circle. Of course, John found people who appreciated him and appreciated his work, but he never got his shot. He never got to open his canvas as wide as he dreamed. And so he lived, and so he died, and you would think that that's the end of that. I mean, who gets a shot in this world anyway, really? I mean, talent matters, it does, but I think it matters a lot less than we care to admit. Connections, luck, the vagaries of fortune, where one happens to be at this or that precise moment, who gets their big break, who gets their show, who gets their anything, even who gets love, their love. Who gets these things can seem as rare and as indiscriminate as being hit by lightning. Ask any artist and they will tell you this is true. We live increasingly in an age of accomplishment, an age of professionalism. I mean, children do not just run outside and play soccer in the empty field behind the house anymore. No, now they wear jerseys from the time they can toddle. And they don't just go outside and play soccer. They train. They train. And if by the age of 10 or so your child is not excelling in one way or another, whether on a traveling team or loaded up with endless tournaments and camps, if they are not serious enough, if they are not single-minded enough on the profession of soccer, they need to let it go, no matter how fun it is to play, because they are not professional enough, these children of ours. And everything seems to be going this way. The way of accomplishment, the way of outward achievement. We are creating a world in which if you cannot sing like an angel, you learn pretty quickly that you shouldn't sing at all. And if you cannot write like John O'Donohue or Mary Oliver, you should maybe think about keeping those verses to yourself. Or maybe you shouldn't bother writing them at all. We value product over process, and we value accomplishment more highly than the authentic self that animates all our striving. We start so very young. I mean, how many of us learn that it's better not to try, better not to express if we can't do it perfectly? How many of us learn that we are somehow not worthy even of a single piece of paper? So thank God for people like Loren here, who wakes up one day and says to himself, you know what? John deserves the show that he never had. Dead or alive, he deserves his shot. Not just because his paintings are good, they are good, but because John Waddill was good. Because he lived on this earth. Because he was true. And that truth and goodness and humor and playfulness and gratitude and beauty inhabits his paintings just as surely as you inhabit the shoes on your feet. John Waddill blessed us with beauty in a world full of ugliness, even if the world was totally unaware of his blessing. So Loren gathers up all these paintings, and Carson hangs them on the walls that you built exactly for this purpose, as a temple for the human soul in all its endless and varied expression. Because this is what we see when we go into the center, or we go see one of our Chalice Theater plays, or when we hear Gay share her poem. This is what we see. We see somebody's soul in that room, open so generously to our gaze. It's not just paint on canvas. It is never just paint on canvas. No more than these are just words on a page. When we go into the center and we spend some time with these paintings, we are fulfilling John Waddill's dreams. We're fulfilling someone's dreams. And who is more blessed, I ask you? The one whose dreams are fulfilled? Or those of us who somehow, unexpectedly, get to be the fulfillers of dreams? Imagine, we are fulfillers of dreams. We forget this. We forget this. That any given day that we lift our heads off the pillows, we walk into the world as dream fulfillers just waiting to happen. This is how we bless one another. By making our mark, by taking our shot, by unrolling ourselves like a canvas, by scratching our stories across a metaphorical page. We bless one another every time we show ourselves. We bless one another every time we listen, every time we see, every time we allow ourselves to be seen. We bless with every memory we share and every story we tell. We bless one another with our honesty, with our empathy, and most especially, we bless with our vulnerability. It's an act of tremendous courage to do what Gay did and the rest of that worship team is doing this month. These aren't words on pages. This is Gay's soul. This is a piece of her essential self. And it's what we share in hopes that you too will be brave enough to share your stories, to make your mark. And so here is mine. I am from Treehouse, Rabbit Hutch, and Country Crock Margarine. I'm from an army green house that droops on the shoulder of Highway 57. I am from birch tree, sumac, and lilac bushes taller than trees. I am from alcohol, stubborn loyalty, and just plain stubborn. From Lillian, Arlene, and all the McVeys. I am from the resilience of necessity and kindness to strangers. I'm from you make a better door than a window and go outside and play. I am from dour Lutherans, gray as granite, and from the smell of toasted cinnamon raisin bagels on Saturday Sabbaths with Grandma. I'm from California, from Grafton, Wisconsin, and Scotland from way back when. I'm from venison, from food stamps, and from government cheese. I'm from the time Uncle Wayne got snake bit, the time my mother rode a motorcycle across Mexico, which is impossible if you ever meet her. And I'm from the time my grandfather shot himself on purpose. I'm from the steamer trunk in the basement that nobody but children ever opens, full of postcards and letters bound with twine, and cardboard collars and cuffs for starched going to church on Sunday shirts, long since worn away. Do you see? Do you see how we can bless one another this way? Do you see how we can be together? We are always both paper and pen. And what happens here, in moments like these, what happens here is it's like when pen finally meets paper. And there is no greater blessing than this. There is no greater blessing in all the world than what happens when we hear one another into presence. So forget about doing it right. Forget about being good enough. Let me tell you, folks, the world can barely contain your beauty as it is right now. And any piece of paper, no matter how beautiful or how far it has to travel, would turn somersaults of joy if you would just touch it and bless it with your soul, with your life, with your ink, with your words. Any piece of paper would be lucky to have you. So do not keep it bottled up. Do not. I love you all, and I see you. Make your mark, people. Make your mark. May it be so. May it be so. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
The closing hymn is in the teal hymnal. It's number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, calling hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our brings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness in the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment burns our hearts and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion plays upon us on our way, of the flame that burns within, then the promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built on our courageous choice. And the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
I invite you to remain standing for our closing words. Take the hand of someone standing near you. And I have two things. First, the homework for the week. You don't even have to leave the building to do it. What I challenge you to do, what I invite you to do is go over there into that center, especially if you show up at 3 o'clock for the reception, which, given that it is John's one art show, this is his one big reception, and it should be a doozy. But beyond that, when you go in there, don't just look at the art and think about how it feels to you and how it blesses you, how it touches you. Really keep in mind that whenever you behold art or witness a story, you are fulfilling someone's dream. Oh, how incredible. Who knew that when you got up this morning, you were going to fulfill someone's dream? Number 2, I want to leave with some words by Jalaluddin Rumi. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. So, take down a musical instrument, dear ones. Take down a musical instrument and let your life speak.